James
Really?
Wrigley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Easy, mate. So you're usually on the other end of this where you're interviewing people. And so have you had, I'd imagine you'd have quite a few interviews under your belt now where you're the interviewee, right?
Yeah, look, I've done a few. Certainly nerve-wracking though. I can't even remember the first one that I did, but
Yeah.
I just remember being nervous doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, like, why me? What have I got to say that's kind of special? It's that I don't know. You kind of get in your own way. Everyone's unique. Everyone's got something to talk about. But why are you interested in what I've got to say? Back in the day. So yeah,
It's so,
I've done
it's
a few by
actually,
now.
yeah, well, that's the interesting thing is if like a lot of people do feel that way, but then so you've got this internal chatter, but then you got the external validation in a way, or external people saying like, James, we want to hear from you, or we want to hear about your thoughts around this. And so it's sort of that dichotomy between, but why, like, why me?
Yeah. They
Because I
call
think
it
we
as
all have
they
lots of
call it
voices.
imposter syndrome. That's it. I was trying to think of before imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
where you have a degree of expertise in some particular industry that you work in, and you
Yeah.
do that for a job. But then when
Yeah.
someone tries to ask you about it, he's like, well, I don't know, I'm not special. The other guy does the same thing as what I do.
Yeah.
Imposter
Yeah.
syndrome. That's it. It's
Have you
hard.
have you found as your journeys sort of progressed? Let's take a step back for a second. So you've been in advice how many years now? Almost 2 decades. What's the actual journey time
Yeah.
frame?
Yeah. I think I'm up to about 17 years now. So I can never remember. I always bring it back to uni. So I finished high school in whenever it was, 2002, that would have been. So I would have finished uni in 2005.
Yeah.
And then what are we now? 2024. So I did nearly 2 years working for one of the big corporate super funds in the processing team, processing investment switches and rollovers and all these bits and pieces, which is now all streamlined. That team or the job that I did, I suspect doesn't exist for anyone anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
So I did that for nearly a couple of years out of uni, and that particular job that I was doing was being outsourced to India. My last responsibility working for that super fund was to train some people on how to do the job that I was doing, and I kind of joke to say they took my job with them on the aeroplane back when they went home.
Yeah.
So then I had to find something to do, something else, and just stumbled into financial advice. At that particular stage, I was doing one of the Kaplan courses, and I started looking for other jobs. I spoke to a recruitment agent, and she says to me, "Oh, like what studying have you done?" I said, "Well, I got a commerce degree. Doesn't that mean I can just get jobs?" And she's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"No, everyone's got a commerce degree. Like, what else have you done?" So
Yeah.
she was really helpful. Sent me on a path of actually doing some extra studies. I landed a job as a client service manager role nearly 17 years ago, I think it is now, and
Yeah.
here I am today working in the same business, sort of. So it's a bit different these days than what it was back then, but a lot of
Yeah.
people still the same.
And day to day, what does your team look like now? Do you have a team under you? What does sort of your
Yeah.
your
So
pod look like?
that's changed a little bit now. So as of 30 June, it changed over. So we're trying a slightly different setup than what we had before. So for the previous few years, I am a principal of the business. I would lead a team. So I had a direct associate advisor with my own clients, but then there was other advisors and other associates within my team. So I think there's maybe three advisors, something like that. I can't quite remember. And most of them had associate advisors working for them. So we might have been a team of six or seven, eight, something like that.
And
Between
were you the
us.
leader? Were you the person that they would go to for sort of the final step?
Correct. Yeah. So like I would do the half yearly performance review check-ins, the monthly how you going type meetings, for the younger guys that are going through professional year, guys and girls going through professional year, that kind of bounce ideas off me. There's even now they still do. They're one of the guys in my team, Joel, he's just within the last 12 months become an advisor, finished professional year. He'll go and run meetings and meet with new clients and all the rest of it, but he always still, and we encourage him to do so, and we encourage everyone else to do so. He kind of just runs the strategy past me or someone else in the team. Says, "Hey, James, I met with this couple," and he goes, "This, that, the other thing tells me a bit about them. This is what I've come up with. What do you think?" And so sometimes it might be, "Yep, that's fantastic. Go for it." Or, "Did you think about this thing? Or what about that thing?"
Yeah.
Before he then submits an SOA request and kind of makes it a bit more official and gets the advice back. Now the team structure that we've moved to is a little different. Again, I'm kind of in charge of the team. There's more people in the team, but we also now have client service team members in the team. Up until 30 June, our client services team was a pool, so we'd pooled paraplanning, pooled client services.
Yep.
We've pulled a couple of the senior client service people into the team. So there's now more people in the team, but the responsibility for the half yearly check-ins, the performance, that kind of stuff, that kind of HR type responsibility, that's been shifted to our advice team leader now, and I just because I care, the bit of kind of check in, how you're going, what are you up to every now and then with the team, rather than the formalities of the 6-monthly review process.
And so then you'll predominantly just jump back into advice, just mainly advice pieces, or what's going to be your
predominantly role? Yeah. So as much, and this is where it's a little unknown, because we're 2.5 months or so into this structure. Like what does the leader of this team mean now versus what did it mean before? It's different.
Yeah.
We don't quite know just yet, and it's kind of it's almost up to me to try and make it what I want to make it, and that's something that I'm just grappling with myself just now. What do I want to make of that team leader responsibility? But yeah, the vast majority of my day is spent being a financial advisor. So meeting with new clients, meeting with existing clients, emails and phone calls and all of that kind of day-to-day stuff that goes on. I now have a direct associate advisor that's working with me, but we also have, just because we were getting pretty busy, we've also got a direct client service officer that's in the Philippines. So we've got a team of people in the Philippines, but I have one person working directly with me. So there's me and then 2 direct supports with my client base, I guess.
Because what do you love?
I love the bit that I enjoy the most in the financial advice space is the talking to the clients in the very beginning and saying, okay, I think we need to do this and we need to do that. It's this chatting to someone else, they describe it as the transformation. I enjoy most the transformation. I love working with the clients over time, in that you build such a relationship with them, and how your kid's going and what about this and what about that, and they want to see the photos of my kids. I love that relationship, but I get more fulfillment out of the initial transformation piece. Those initial couple of meetings, when you actually get to the stage of, okay, we need to gather up all of this stuff to request a statement of advice, that bit I hate. I would love to be able to, I'd love to be able to meet with clients and talk about stuff and get things moving without having to be bogged down in the compliance piece of, I need to issue a statement of advice. I know it's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
But it's like those first 2 or 3 interactions with a client, and I'd love to just be able to move fast and get them going. But we get stuck at times.
So you spend a lot of time around, because so for those who don't know, James, you're also a co-host of or a host of a show that's part of a very large podcasting network called Ensemble. And so you've got your finger on the pulse. You're talking to many, many different people from the advice space, from periphery, everything advice, professionality. From your perspective, do you see what's the best way that we can move forward in the advice industry? How do you see it moving in the future?
Yes. I was having a chat with someone at there's a Net Wealth conference on in Melbourne last week, and there's this, we were chatting about, and there's a podcast episode in it for someone, whether it's me or you or someone else does it, but this idea of underutilization of advisors in financial advice. Like as part of the Ensemble kind of network, I do this. I interview a lot of people, as you're saying. A lot of them are getting into the financials of it, but I suspect, by and large, they're not terribly big, small businesses. It's not uncommon for an advisor in a larger financial advice business to be looking after 100 plus clients, $1 million plus worth of revenue. Like that's doable in these kind of big businesses. I
Mm,
don't know, and this is what I would love to peel the layers of the onion back to try and understand at what level are some of these small businesses getting at? Like, can they get to $1 million of revenue? Can they have 100, 120, 150, depends how you slice and dice it. Can they get to there,
mm.
or is that too difficult for a single operator small business? And I don't know the answer to that. Some of these small business owners will be able to provide a bit more input into there. So, can we get to a level where you can run these bigger client bases, bigger revenue? You can then have a bit more support and so forth around it, because there's a wave of people coming that need advice, but from all the stats that we hear, there aren't anywhere near enough financial advisors to support all of these people that are coming that are going to need the help.
So the need for advice, someone comes to you, for you personally, what's a dream client?
Uh, so a dream client for me is someone that has, so they sit in two camps. They're a high earning, often couple, probably young kids, probably young in the sense that they're at least at primary school. They're settled into their home. Mortgage is somewhat under control. They're earning probably $500,000 a year plus, and they're saying, "What do we do next?" I do a
Yeah.
lot of work in that space, and that's the work in that space is a lot of it's around just helping them do some reasonably simple things. They're extra busy in their life. They've got a good job. Their kids are all over the place. They've got sporting activities all weekend long. It's much the same as what my household looks like with my kids and so forth. But it's just helping them get the foundations in order so that they're going to be great by the time they are 60. And then it's the other client at the other end. They're retiring, they own their own home. They've probably got somewhere between about $1 and $5 million worth of retirement savings. And they see the need for having someone help them make some important decisions around the transition into retirement. But then they also want some help on an ongoing basis. They say, we've done whatever we've done. We want to just go on holiday and spend time with our grandkids. We don't want to have to worry about the money. Can you help us take care of all of that? So they're the two kind of ideal clients for me, the dream clients for me.
Yeah. Perfect. So just sort of touching on that, as you have grown as an advisor over the years, 17 years deep now, for example,
Yeah.
how have you found the facilitation of your advice has changed, if it has?
So like online is the clear change. So I was doing online meetings. We were talking about COVID before we started kind of recording. I was doing online meetings with clients. So I live in Victoria. I got a whole lot of clients that have retired to the Gold Coast, and then they introduce their friends from the golf club, and you kind of end up with this group of clients in and around the Gold Coast. We used to once a year go up and see them as a bit of a tour. We'd stay in the Gold Coast for a few days and see them all kind of back to back once a year. But then in between time, we were using Zoom and the like, Skype and so forth before COVID. COVID then just ramped that all up, and so everyone was stuck at home, particularly those down here in Melbourne, and so we've now got clients that are all over the place. It's kind of opened our doors to be able to help more people in different locations. And
Yeah.
then if you throw into the mix the kind of the social media element, we've got people that live in the middle of nowhere, like literally in the middle of Australia kind of thing, that there just isn't a financial advisor, whether a good or bad, whether they
Yeah.
like them or not, there just isn't a financial advisor within like
Yeah.
1,000 kilometers of where they live. And so the advent, the big push to online, it now means that I would do 80% of my week would be spent online talking to
Oh, true.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not that many, even all of my older, longer standing clients, there's probably only a third of them that come into the city now, whereas they used to every meeting was done in the city, in our office in the city in Melbourne. There's probably only about a third of them come in now. There's no chance that 40-something-year-old that's earning $500,000 a year is coming in for a meeting in the city.
Yeah.
One in 10 maybe. They're at work. It's like, okay, yeah, no worries. I'll chat to you for an hour, and then I'm going to get on with the rest of my day. I don't need to come and see you.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here in this bedroom here, do a whole lot
Yeah.
of work from here, do a whole lot of work from the city. It's helped me, and this is a realization for me over a while. It like work is something that I do, not somewhere that I go to. And in my
Mm.
earlier years, in my 20s and so forth, it was like I'm going to work, I'm going to the office. But then it dawned on me, I'm not bringing anything. I'm just going to the office to tap on a keyboard. I can
Yeah.
tap on a keyboard from anywhere or talk to someone online from anywhere. So it's
Yeah.
something I do, not a place that I go to now.
So, and that brings up a really interesting point around, well, I sort of jump to identity as well. So, yes, there's the location of, it's just something that I do. It's sort of, if we then go into, who I am,
Hmm.
when you think, and if we go deep for a second, but if you think of, who James is, who do you think you are?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I, it's kind of the cliche thing, but I've always been I've been a teacher and
Mm.
a kind of a helper of sorts. Like if I think back to high school, I did reasonably well in maths subjects, for example, and so if there was a test coming up at high school, I would write myself a cheat sheet of certain things, whatever was going to be tested on. So then I didn't have to carry my massive maths textbook with me to school,
Yeah.
not because, hang on, this is actually a really good way to study. It just was a byproduct
Yeah.
of that. And it was later on I realized, hang on, I probably did well because I'd spent the time to make this cheat sheet. That was because I didn't want to carry a 300-page textbook with me. I just
Yeah.
wanted to take two A4 pages. But then I can remember being at school and I'd have these sheets and some of my friends at lunchtime, they're going, oh, what's this stuff? And I said, oh, it's just some things I had to revise. And so I'd end up like helping some of my friends at school and kind of teaching them.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of morphed into now what I do on a day-to-day basis is, there's certain things that I know, there's certain things I get to understand from the client that's on the other end, and then we're trying to bridge the two. Some of it's a bit of book smarts, some of it's a bit of practice, and I've seen other people like you before, and this happened and that happened, and we ended up in a good location. So bit of a teacher, a bit of an educator. I've said to a few people in the past that in another life I probably would have been a teacher.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe that's a career change for me when I've had enough of financial advice.
So you're 17 years deep now, and you still love the advice piece. What I
Yeah,
do find from various investigations is people generally sort of sometimes even get over advice, and then they just love the sharing and the mentoring, the giving back, or they switch careers entirely and they're just over doing another super contribution or something like that. But it sounds like you still really love the thing, the process, the actual doing of the advice piece, as well as giving back
yeah,
and whatnot, it sounds like as well. But predominantly, you love speaking to people, clients.
yes, I do. And a couple of years ago, I got to a point, and it was a conscious effort on my side. It's like I can do this financial advice stuff. Like I purposely tried to build my career to a point where people wanted to work with me because I was me, not because someone, an accountant said, "Oh, you need to go and see this financial advisor."
Yeah.
So I'd done a whole lot of work, and so I'd kind of ticked that box. And so then I'd made this change when becoming principal, leading of the team, and so forth. It's like I can do that financial advice stuff. The bit that's going to keep me interested and keep me moving forward now is helping these other younger guys and girls kind of come through the system, whether
Mm.
client service and now their whole professional year. And it's a whole lot more documented than what it was in the past. But the business that I work in, we already had a career path like a professional year type
Yeah.
thing. Now it's just a few more boxes that need to be ticked. So it is that kind of mentoring, giving back part. But it doesn't matter how many people you kind of sit in front of. There's always, I think back to the meeting that I just had during the week. They're sitting there going, "Oh wow, we didn't know this stuff. We didn't know this stuff." Like we're in this kind of position of privilege that we know a lot just because of the work that we've done for so long. The average
Yeah.
person out there doesn't know it, and but it's maybe just kind of come into my head now is it's like, do I have a bit of a duty to share the knowledge that I have with other people, whether they're going to become a fee paying client or not? Like, who really cares?
Yeah.
But this kind of sharing and making other people's lives a little bit better.
Yeah.
that gives me a sense of satisfaction. And so enough people say, yes, I'll pay you to help you do that. And there's a whole lot of other people that were never going to pay me to do that, but
Yeah.
it's a good mix.
Have you found it hard as your online profile has grown to keep up? And like we were saying before at the very start, imposter syndrome in a way.
Yeah.
You've got thousands and thousands of people asking you questions. I don't know if anyone's stopping you in the street for photos or anything of this nature, but have you found it hard to keep up?
I I love I love the online presence because it allows me to help more people at a far bigger scale than I could have before. Like in traditional financial advice, I'd be able to help 100 people, and I could have 100 clients, or if I helped some people and then none of them became ongoing clients of mine that I looked after, or if I passed them all off to some other advisor and all I did was the initial piece, that's incredibly tiring. Like the last 12 or 18 months or so, I've done a lot of one-off work, and I'm trying to start to move away from that because it's just so tiring, just doing
Yeah.
one-off jobs, one-off job, one-off job. But the online stuff allows me to help a whole lot more people at a much larger scale. So
Yeah.
you'll do one video and 40,000 people have seen it. Now, if 10 people of those 40,000 see it and they actually take some action and they change some little thing, that would have taken me months to try and help 10 people individually, but I've just done it with one individual video. The bit that's hard, the bit that is hard and I still struggle with now, and this will be an evolving thing over time, is the people that then decide that they actually want some proper help. Like there's only one of me, as much as there's a team of other advisors, and so they do a great job supporting me, and they'll take some of the inquiries that come through. There's still a proportion that say, "Oh no, I only want to deal with James," and so
Mm.
I end up my diary just chock a block full, and it's booked out for weeks in advance, and that's great on one side, but it's also really tiring on the other side. You get to a
Yeah.
point it's like, how long can you keep it up for?
Well, what's your qualification process? Because I imagine people are booking in. So you've got an open booking 15-minute chat on through your social media
Yeah.
profiles. People can
Yes.
book that in, but then they've got to fit that in amongst all the other regular events you have in your calendar. What's
Yes.
your qualification process?
Yeah. So you're right. There's that 15-minute phone call, and so I'll do some of them. I certainly don't do all of them. In the very, very beginning, when TikTok started taking off, it was just me, but I had to quickly change that. But the advisors in my team that I was explaining before, that the team structure,
Mm.
they kind of just get divvied up across the week. And so I'll do some calls. The other advisors will do some calls. And each of those individual advisors, if they do a call and it sounds like someone that they can help, and they'll just take it and kind of run with it. Often they're giving me a bit of feedback, and they're saying, I met with this person and we're doing this. What do you think about that? And so I'm involved in a lot of them, but behind the scenes, not necessarily in the meeting and kind of showing up and delivering the
Sure.
advice myself. But then there's those that I'm kind of dealing with myself. What I've just done, and this is just a recent change in the last week, is trying to be really direct with the type of client that I want to work with.
Yeah.
So ideally, and this is just a change in the last week, I want to work with people that want an ongoing advice relationship. As much as I said, I like that kind of transformation, but I want to do that transformation, but then help them bed it down over a period of time, just not deliver a one-off piece of work.
Yeah.
And so I want to work with people that want an ongoing advice relationship, want to make some type of change. They can afford to, either through their income or assets that they've got, afford to pay more than $10,000 a year in ongoing advice fees. And we'll meet with them a couple of times a year, and we'll help them with that initial piece of work and then the transition and the transformation thereafter. I spent a lot of the last 12 months doing a lot of one-off pieces of work, and so going to help a whole lot of people. But as I said before, it was just incredibly tiring. And
Yeah.
so I'm moving away from I'll do the odd piece of one-off work, but the one-off work was by far the dominant thing for last financial year, and I don't want that to be going forward. So we'll just use the rest of the team, like there's others in the team that will have the capacity to do one-off pieces of work. That's fine. We can still help them as a business,
Yeah.
but James won't be helping them directly. I'll be in the shadows, I won't be running that going forward.
So I've
Give
only
it
ever
time.
worked in a firm and we only do ongoing advice. So we don't do one-off advice at all. So I don't know what sort of that sort of piece looks like. I would imagine that sort of you get the structure and the strategy, and so you give the statement of advice and hey, here's what it looks like, and Mr. and Mrs. Client, we'll set everything up for you, but then you're sort of on your own. Can you sort of paint me a picture on what one-off advice or a one-off advice engagement you've done somewhat recently might look like for you?
Yeah. So there was one that we did a bit of work with last year. They had he'd lost his job to begin with. She was still working. Partway through the process, he ended up with another job, but they had a bit of money. And they come and say, look, we're happy with our super funds. We like it. It's fine. We just need some help with some setup. And so we did some contribution advice. We did some pension advice. They put aside some money because they're building a house. And so we did all of the things that you would normally do in a normal advice engagement, other than say, hey, let me manage all of your assets for you, which is typically the way that a financial advice business would run. Not all of them, but a lot do. And so let me manage your $1.5 million that's in your super fund. We went through the whole risk profiling exercise. We decided on a particular mix of assets, and then we just kind of implemented that in the existing Australian super fund for the husband. He had money in Australian super. So I said, look, it's all set up. We've helped you do it. We're sorting out your beneficiaries, as I said, contributions, pensions, investment mix, all of this kind of thing. Now I won't contact you until you contact me, and if you contact me again in the future, we'll go through this exercise again. And they were more than happy, big advocates of the business. Did our kind of client feedback survey just recently. And at a point in time in the future, I have no doubt they will come back again 4 years down the track and say, this has changed, that's changed. We've now decided we're going to retire. We're 65 years old. What do we do now? They may very well become ongoing, fully fledged kind of clients then, possibly.
At that point. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's that kind of thing is what we've been doing. It's kind of, I describe it to these clients as to say, we'll help you set things up, get you going, point you in the right direction. You just kind of keep heading in that direction. If something changes significantly in your life, we'll then reach out and we can revisit things again. But maybe for the time being, you don't really need to pay us 10 grand a year, that ideal type client. You don't need that just now.
Yeah. And so is it an efficiency standpoint from one? Because a lot of the bulk work is traditionally done in that initial sort of piece, strategy, setup, structuring, getting everything right, data collection, etc., understanding the client, their motivations, their drivers, this sort of nature, their fears. And then there's a lot of heavy upfront loading needed, and then sort of you get over it. And then there's obviously legislation changes and individual circumstantial changes that sort of goes on. There's rebalancing that goes on. There's sort of portfolio management that can sort of happen. For you to sort of make that decision saying, look, for the most part, 98% of the advice I give now is going to be ongoing advice only. Was that more of I just can't keep doing this one-off advice piece, otherwise I'll just completely burn out?
100%. Yeah, that's what it was. So there's a market for sure, and I've tested it in the last 12 months. There is a market for people that will pay many thousands of dollars for an initial advice engagement, but I said it just going to burn me out, and I just can't do it. And so it's by saying I'm only going to work with people that look like this, and they're going to pay a reasonable fee. It's not a small fee. That as a byproduct, that will slow down, and I'm expecting it to. That will slow down the number of clients that I work with, and I'm perfectly happy for that to happen. There's enough of a support mechanisms in the business to still be able to help all of those people that don't meet that certain criteria. We can still help them, but as I said, it just won't be me, because I can't go at the same pace that I did last 18 months or so.
Yeah. So you're a busy guy. You've got lots going on, a couple of kids, Auskick. You've got host of a podcast. You did a whole bunch of TikTok and Instagram videos. How did the Ensemble podcast opportunity come about?
Clayton just reached out to me. So I knew a lot of the people at an ensemble anyway, different things. I was a big contributor to the community in the very early days when it was called XY, and that kind of slowly phased out with my contribution to it. But I knew a lot of them. So I had a bit of an online presence then anyway. The particular podcast that I took over was the one that Ben Nash was hosting. He wanted to step away from it to spend more time doing his own podcast for his own business. And Clayton just reached out and said, "Hey, Ben's going to phase out of this. Are you interested in doing it?" And I just said yes. And I've kind of had this over my career. I'm a very introverted person. Like if we were in a room of people, like I'm the guy standing in the corner. I'm not out shaking hands and talking to everyone.
Yeah.
But I realized a number of years ago, certain opportunities are going to come your way throughout your working life. Just say yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Worry about what that actually means later on,
Yeah.
and come to terms with it later on. But just say yes. And so Clayton asked me. I said, "Yeah, sure. No, let's do it." And that we're I don't know, a year and a half or so into doing it, 2 years, whatever it is, into hosting the weekly podcast.
How's your career sort of changed, or like what has been a crossroad in your career where you've thought you could go either way as really a bit of a conflict in terms of sort of what you would do next?
I don't know that there's really been any. I got impatient at one stage. So certain structure we had many years ago within the business, it made it a little bit difficult to kind of move up. In order to move up, you pretty much had to wait for the person above you to either move up or leave. And so I spent a bit of time at a particular level in my career. And I can remember at one stage, I went through the interview process to go and get an advisor job at one of the banks. And I had a really open relationship with my boss. And I told him, and he goes, I'm never going to stand in the way of you going to get another job somewhere else. And if I think it's a good fit for you, I'll walk down there and knock on the door and tell him you need to hire James because he's this, that, and the other. But he turned around to me and said, he goes, "Don't you ever leave here to go and work for a bank." Because that's not happening. You're not going to work for a bank. And so, oh, okay, sure. So
Imagine if you did. Imagine what you'd be if you actually did.
I often think back as to what would have happened if I had taken that job working with the bank. Obviously the bank's all gotten out of financial advice since, but yeah, it would have been a fair bit different to where I am today. I would have thought. But look, other than that, things have just progressed slowly for me over time. It's still with the same business. There's always just been opportunities that have come along. Maybe I had to wait a little bit longer than what I thought I was ready for. But the message that I give to the younger guys in the business now is to say, you're in your 20s or something, and you're going through all of this. You've got so many years ahead of you. Like, don't stress it. Joel, that's not even a year into being an advisor now. I've got 15, 16 more years on you. Like, that's a long amount of time. You've got plenty of time ahead of you to hone your craft and try different things and learn what you like, learn what you don't like. Just take your time.
Mm. What's sort of part of your financial plan? Like, what's freedom to you?
Freedom to me is to be able to kind of come and go from work as I need to, as I please, to be around for my family. So whether that's dropping the kids off at school, being there to pick them up from time to time if we need to, taking them to the sport on the weekend, swimming lessons on a Friday night, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm happy to work whenever. Like, I would more than happily turn the computer on this afternoon and do 3 or 4 hours work this afternoon, knowing full well that I might be late to work on Monday morning because I dropped the kids off on Mondays. So it's just fitting the work in. It just becomes part of my life. I'm not a big advocate for this work-life balance. I just think it's all one big melting pot, and you do some life things and you do some work things at a different point in time that works for you. So that's that's the big that's the flexibility for me. I couldn't work in a place where they said, no, you've got to be here at 8:30 in the morning and you can't leave until 5:30 at night. I'll just, see you later. I'm not,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
isn't for me. See you later. I'll go and find somewhere else to work. That gives me
Yeah.
a bit more of the flexibility that I need.
Yeah. And where do you see yourself in sort of 5 years' time?
Uh, Much the same. So in my own financial plan, I want my mortgage paid off in 10 years, but I don't plan on stopping work in 10 years. So 10 years time from me, no, I'll hopefully have my mortgage paid off. My eldest son will be 20. My youngest will be just finishing high school. And then in my mind, at least I've seen it with plenty of clients over the years, I'm going to have 10 of those glory years at the end between 50 and 60 where
Yeah.
I'm earning a good income. My kids have finished school. My mortgage is paid off. And so
You can
you
return
better
to
do.
Vegas.
You'll do a bit more of those trips and stuff,
Yeah.
spend $40,000 on a 4-week overseas holiday. That won't be a problem when the mortgage and stuff is done. But
Yeah.
then also really kind of just really ramp up the normal retirement savings, so that by the time I'm 60, I don't need to work anymore if I don't want to. I probably
Because
will, I suspect,
yeah,
but
yeah, exactly. But what drives you?
uh, it look, it's not the money. I'm at a point in my career where I'm paid well. I've been doing it for long enough. I own part of the business. There's dividends and all of those kind of things. Like it's nice, but I don't need to live in the house where I live, and I don't need to send my kids to the school where I plan to send my kids to school. I just do that because I can. I more
Yeah.
than happily live somewhere in a cheaper house and all the rest of it. It's just for me, it kind of keep coming back to it. It's this kind of teaching. It's this helping thing. It's just
Yes.
trying to make other people better in one way, shape, or form, whether it's better in their finances, better in helping them through their career.
Yeah.
It's seeing others flourish and succeed is a big driver for me. Yeah.
Have you had anyone knock on the door to help write a book or to produce some sort of course or
Yes. More recently, yes. So a couple of publishers have reached out and said, "Hey, James, have you considered writing a book?" And so we're at various stages of ideas and things with that. Um, the course part's a bit of a challenge because I'm a licensed financial advisor. It needs to be done in a particular way, and then
yeah.
I'm also an employee of a business of this business, and so I can't go building a James Wrigley course on the side, which is
Yeah.
kind of in line with, but maybe competition with my employment. So could I do it? Yes, it would need to be part of the broader business that I work in. It's just this kind of juggle of time. One of the newspapers, one of the online newspapers, has reached out and asked me to do like a weekly column
Yeah.
for them, kind of answering questions, which I've said yes. Well, that'll launch in the next little while. So it's back to this kind of saying yes to different things.
Yeah.
It is really at a point now. It's like, well, where's the time to do that? Earlier on in
Have there
my career,
been
I had all the time in the
have there been
world.
any yeses you've regretted?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And I play out in my head that if something's not working, well, then I just kind of quickly make a decision to not do it and move on. So
Yeah.
I want to test things, try things, keep saying yes.
Yeah.
Fortunately, to date, things have all worked. From the social media channels, there's certain groups, certain people have reached out and said, "Oh, can we pay you to do some videos on this, that, and the other?" And I've said no. So some of that's
Yeah.
one, it just doesn't sit right with me, and two, I probably can't do it even if I wanted to, just because of the licensing regime that I sit under
Yeah.
with a financial advisor. But I
Yeah.
just don't want to do it in the first place. There's a couple of no's from that front, but by and large, everything that I've said yes to has led to me to be in the position that I am today. It's hard to think of how it would be otherwise, I guess.
And Steve Jobs has a really great, or had a really great philosophy around sort of happiness and working life and decision making. And so he'd wake up of a morning, and if 3 days in a row he looked in the mirror and said, am I happy with the path that I'm on? And if it was 3 days in a row where the answer was no, he knew something had to change.
Mm.
And so that's when he started to go, okay. And I've used that same sort of philosophy inside my life as well, just to, because I think we can all tell internally if something's not quite right. Obviously, there's times where you have to go through to just dredge through the mud, and that's just
Yeah.
life. It can't always just be ups and great things. There's times where you're like, actually, I'm going through the mud right now. There's those times where you're like, you know what, something does need to change. And I think in life, especially in my experience, starts off as a little whisper, then it's like a little knock at the door, and then it's like a bit of a push, then it's a shove, and then something really dramatic happens until you like wake up and be like, oh, I need to actually change something here in my life.
That's it. The bit is that you need to recognize those signs, signals, whatever they are that come along. Keep saying yes to things, but if you wake up 3 days in a row and this doesn't quite sit right with me, well then make a change and move on. There's nothing wrong with that. And that might be
Yeah.
where you're working. It might be something that you're doing as part of your work, whatever. Just make that change, move on quickly and get on with your life. It's fine.
What do you think advice is really about?
Good question. What do I think advice is really about? I think advice is, I think a lot of advice is helping people to come to the answers for various things themselves, kind of giving them the space to work through a bit of a process. Maybe there's a bit of educating that's going on there, but giving them the space, giving them the support to kind of make some decisions that they probably knew they should have made in the first place.
Mm,
But it's easier to accept someone else suggesting or kind of prodding you in a particular direction when you know that's probably the direction you should have gone anyway. But when someone else is saying it and pushing you in that direction, it's far easier for you to accept it and
mm,
head in that direction. Like in financial advice, you should pay off your debts. You should save a bit of money. You
yes.
should worry about eventually I'm going to be old enough to retire, or eventually my body's going to give out on me and I need to have some money left over. Like everyone knows that, but it's not until you actually sit down with someone and they start prodding you and pushing you in a particular direction that you do it. So it's not, very rarely are we taking someone through things where they just didn't know it at all.
Yeah.
It's completely foreign to them. They were thinking they were going this direction, but we're saying they're going that direction. I think advice is giving people the space to open up, feel comfortable, share where they're at, and you're kind of giving them the room to find their own answers. And when they do, you're there to support them and okay, to push them through to execute on that answer rather than lecturing someone and telling them you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do the other thing. That's not going to go so well for you, whether it's in financial advice or just in life in general.
Yes. And so just sort of bridging off that as well, what have you found some really important tools that you've used, you got in your tool belt to elicit change?
Uh, so you kind of go down the line of questioning, and I suppose all financial advisors will do this. You're going to first by starting to understand, okay, tell me where you're at right now.
Yeah.
Tell me what are the things that you want to actually do. And it's not more money for more money's sake. It's like, well, what does that money actually mean for you? What do you actually want to do? And then what is this going to mean for you if you actually execute on that kind of thing? So you need to start bigger picture. I had a meeting with a couple earlier in the week, and if you look at their details on a piece of paper, they look like they're killing it. Lots of income, lots of assets, all of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But as we started to open up in these kind of conversations, one member of the couple said to me, like, I feel like from fortnight to fortnight, I just feel like we never have any money. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how I can possibly feel like that. I can see how many dollars are going into this bank account, but why the hell am I feeling like there's nothing there? And there was plenty of money over in this particular bank account. There was money there. It wasn't as if there wasn't any money.
Mm.
But why are you having that feeling? And so it's just this kind of lack of, in that instance, it was this kind of lack of control. We need to build some systems in place where you can feel a little bit more in control of what you're doing with your money and where it's going, rather than being on the other side and being reactive and going, oh crap, there's no money left in this particular bank account at the end of the fortnight.
Yes.
Hmm.
How do you help practically help people get that control though? Because you can give someone a budget, they can look at what's coming in, what's going out, you review their bank statement. What have you found is the most effective way to build that feeling, that locus of control?
Yeah, so it's rather than kind of going through that granular budget type thing, because I don't do that myself. I
Yeah,
did it
exactly.
for a while, tracking things. I can't expect others to do it. I couldn't think of anything worse to do. But it's taking a step back and saying, okay, what is the life that we want to lead? What do we want to do? Okay, we want to go on holidays every year, and that's going to cost us $30,000 a year in holidays. Fantastic. What does that work out to in weekly installments or fortnightly installments?
Yeah.
Okay, that money's going over here for holidays. You're done. Okay, what do you want to do in terms of day-to-day living? What do you think that's going to cost you? How much do you want to spend? That's $5,000 a month. That's $10,000 a month. That's $15,000 a month. Everyone's going to have different
Yeah.
kind of outlook there. And so what we do in my own house, and what I've got a lot of clients doing, is it's just setting up a series of bank accounts, each with a different purpose, to say, okay, there's all this money comes in from wherever it comes in from, it lands into one bank account, and then we're allocating money to these different accounts for these different things that you told me you want to do. Now, hopefully the sum of all of these things that you want to do is less than the money that's coming in.
Yeah.
Let's just let that run for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months and just see where we end up. It's not a race. And if we find that one of those bank accounts is always running empty, well, there's something going on. Maybe we either need to allocate more money to there, or you need to pull your head in on the holidays. You're actually spending $50,000 a year on holidays, not $30,000 a year. And if you keep spending $50,000 a year on holidays, this is what the future is going to look like for you. Do you want that as your future? No, I don't. Okay, well then we need to make some change. So it's really just as simple as allocating the money that you earn to the things that you want to do, and not allocating any money to the things that you don't want to do. And that's going to be different for you versus me versus the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And I can't remember his name. But there's a influencer out there. He lives in the States, and his whole philosophy around sort of spending money is spending generously on the things that really mean something to you and that you have a high value on, and being a total tight ass in things that don't matter to you. And so it's really just about, and I think even inside of that is understanding values. And so what's really truly important to me, because you have the clients that come in, they say, I want to create passive income. Well, it's not really, what's some of your goals? Like, oh, I want to create passive income. Well, it's not really a goal. Or they say, I want to buy an investment property. Again, it's not really a goal. There's something underneath there. And if we think about sort of the power of three, is something that I've learned in terms of, okay, why is that important? Oh, because I want to be able to do this. Okay, why is that important? And why is that important? And the further down you go, you can actually go 7 levels down and find out a real true core reason. But 3 is traditionally enough to start to understand the core driver behind why someone wants to do that. And I've found in my own journey, actually going beyond the surface level question, which is easy if you're sort of playing at that sort of top level. It's easy to think about, okay, logical and very easy, quick decisions that are able to be made. Oh, I want to have an investment property. Great, let's have that as a goal. But then if you start to go deeper under that and start to understand the emotional driver, okay, why is that? Why would that be important to you? And tell me a bit more about that. And so just digging deeper, I've found, has been a really effective way to actually understand why someone wants to do it. Because all that stuff will quickly go out the window if you don't get the true driver for it. It's all too easy to order Uber Eats or to go on an extra piece of holiday if you don't truly understand the consequences or the why behind what you're actually doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a client during the week that I've been working with them for a number of years now. They got their house is paid off, they've got investment property, all the rest of it, and they're looking and going, oh, someone suggested we should upgrade our home, because we can, because we can buy
Yep.
bigger. So, but what, like, why does that mean? And I knew what his response would be, but I kind of prompted him around these kind of questions, and he said, well, if we move from the house that we're in to this bigger, more expensive house in this other suburb over there, then my kids can't walk to school anymore, and my wife would have a longer trip to and from work. So
Yeah.
as much as
Yeah.
I could do it, yes, and I earn enough and all the rest of it. Why the hell would I do that? I don't want to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I want to stay in the house that I'm in, and and the same was about another. They could afford to buy another investment property. Yes, they could, but do they need to? And he kind of said, like, my husband and wife work. And he said, if I don't work another day in my life, I know my wife is going to work in her job for another 20 plus years. If I don't work another day in my life, we can live off her income and we're going to be perfectly fine. We'll have more than enough money in retirement. So then it's at a point of, well, what for? Like, is in this client's world, more money doesn't mean anything in the world to them. Who cares
Yes.
if I had another $1 or $2 million in retirement? For me, the important part is that my kids can walk to school and my wife has a quick journey to her workplace. That's worth far more to us now than another couple $1 million when we retire. We're going to have plenty anyway. We don't need more.
Yes. And I think, and that's a really important distinction around optimal versus optimized. And so, say for example, and go back to the bank account scenario, right? Optimal would be every single cent is, if they've got a home in an offset account, right? Every single cent sits in the offset for as long as possible. But what's optimized for the particular client situation, if it's all sitting there in one big pool, they might just see that $20,000 or $50,000 sitting there. And so the value of that money, because there's so much of it, perceived so much of it, because it's not categorized into different versions of where it would want to be for their goals, it becomes easier to spend. Oh, there's $50,000 there. Oh, yeah, we can just spend an extra $100 on that this week. When really that $100 added up over time into the different buckets is what's going to allow them to actually live that better life over a longer time span. So you've got optimal versus optimized. I think sometimes people may sort of skew that, thinking it's just the all or nothing mentality, right? Where it just has to be 100% in our offset or 100% this way, when really what's really important to this particular client that you're speaking about is walking their kids to school or being able to, be more present with what they actually want to do. So it takes a level of self-awareness there as well to really understand, well, what actually is important to me, sort of bring it back to the bigger why as well.
And that's like, I personally struggle with that bit. When my wife and I first got together, I used to run off a credit card and she used to spend everything on cash.
Yes.
And I am still today that person that goes, I can just spend another $100 on this thing. And then I look at the end of the month, I'm like, Jesus, there should have been more money in that bank account. But it's because I spent this $100 here and this $100 there. Like, there's enough money in the bank account. We can afford to spend it. But then when you look at it and say, well, there should have been, I was expecting there to be X amount of money in the bank account by the time I got paid, but now there's only Y. As much as I'm the financial advisor and I tell people a lot, that's my biggest struggle in managing money myself. We've got the whole automation going on, and so I have all of that going on purpose so that I don't have to think about it. It all just happens, and then I open up the app and go, oh wow, look how much money is in the investment account. I didn't even think about it. It needs to be gone.
Yes.
Otherwise, I could spend it. So
it's totally true, because you've got a pulse and a heartbeat. And the funniest thing is, and I've referenced this a little bit, is Isaac Newton in the 1600s or 1700s. I can't remember which century, but he got caught up in this South Sea tea bubble, and so he bought in at a really high price. It's just Isaac Newton, the founder of gravity. Well, not founder, but you know what I'm saying. He's the guy who basically penned what gravity is. Gets caught up, buys at the top of this bubble, loses, sells at the bottom, and then it goes back up and he buys at the top. So you can just tell even from that simple story, and as well as talking to me, talking to you, or listening to these stories, that it doesn't matter about your IQ, it doesn't matter about your profession. At the end of the day, everyone's got emotions, and the two predominant emotions which move people the highest are fear and greed. And so everyone's going to have those inbuilt. So it's more about taking away from the emotional side of things, which is very volatile and very can be easily influenced, and trying to find systems that work for you, so automatic transfers and whatnot. But that's why it's so important to have that stuff. But to think anyone's immune just because of a career choice or a number that represents an IQ is so easily debunked.
Yeah, exactly. You make me feel better about myself. Thanks.
Well, that's what I'm here for. But yeah, just sort of as we finish off, what's the best place to sort of see more of your videos, more of your stuff, to get in contact with you?
Yep.
What sort of do you direct people to now?
Instagram or TikTok.
What do you prefer?
Instagram.
Do you have a preference in not for contacting, but like in terms of sort of your preference around media? Do you prefer one or the other?
I'm preferring Instagram these
You
days.
like Instagram? Yeah.
I love TikTok, but they've and I don't know. I still post regularly on there. Any video that's on TikTok is also on Instagram. I just put it in both places. TikTok is just full of scammers, and scammers in the sense of people that rip off my videos, pretend to be me, try and message people, try and get people to fall into a crypto scam. I've had one person that I know of that fell into this and lost a few $1,000s. And TikTok's really poor in trying to get these accounts down. Like 3 weeks ago, I reported half a dozen accounts, and they're still all active today. It's
Oh
just
wow,
so
quite slow.
hard to try and get scam accounts taken down. Whereas Instagram does a far better job of it. So my preference, just because of Instagram, if there's a fake account there, you can kind of report it. It gets taken down pretty quickly, and there's just nowhere near as many fake accounts on Instagram as there is TikTok. My preference for the time being is Instagram, but that may very well swing the other way at some point.
Yeah, awesome. So they can just search your name on any of the social media platforms with Google.
So if you
Pretty easy to find.
search James Wrigley on Instagram or TikTok. There's a LinkedIn page. I got a YouTube page as well. I don't really put too much on there, but the viewers, there's nothing. I did some podcasts and things a while back. There's a few videos on there. Every now and then I remember to put something on there, but it's not a huge consideration for me. It should be, but it's not.
Well, I think the biggest limitation just with the shorter form, I don't know, a lot of short form as well, but the biggest limitation is just the time limit. I mean, Instagram's gone to 3 minutes now for the shorter videos, but TikTok and YouTube Shorts is super short as per the name, but you know what I mean? Like it's
so hard.
And sometimes the concepts and stories that you want to tell, you can really only fit, one, if you're doing a review of the week, for example, I saw these clients, had X meetings for the week. Here's what we went through. You can really only say, I had this client meeting. Here's what the strategy that we went through. You can't really do a review of the whole week or go through too much detail in the time limit that you're given. That's the nature of it, isn't it?
Yeah, the YouTube shorts are hard. And so I do the videos for Instagram and TikTok. They're okay. But then every now and then, like, I should put one on YouTube Shorts, but I just find it so hard to cut my video down. Even if it is a really short video, I find it so hard to get it cut down enough to fit on YouTube. So I don't do enough on there, but I could. Yeah, but if you search my name on all of those different places, you can find some of my videos. Yep.
Awesome, mate. Well, just before I finish up, I've been thinking about this question a little bit. What is a movie that you wish you could watch again for the first time?
Movie I could watch again for the first time. I would like to be able to go back and kind of how I am now, rewatch one of the original Batmans. My parents talk of had a recording of Batman, and there was one of them, just like one of the original ones, and there's some line that's like something along the lines of, sometimes it's hard to get rid of a bomb, or you can't get rid of a bomb, or something like that. Some particular line. But my parents tell me I watched that recording over and over and over again. I would love to be able to go back and, me being me now, experience watching that as a 5 or a 6-year-old or however old I was back then for
Yes.
the first time. That would be good to see, because my kids are a similar age, to see how I was back then versus what my kids are like now.
So are you still a superhero geek?
Not really. No. Um, I, no, I'm not. Like, I certainly haven't watched all of the, Marvels and all the
No,
rest
I
of
can't
them.
get
My
into them.
my kids have watched a few,
Yeah.
but yeah, this original Batman, whatever it was, that'd be the one I'd try and rewatch if I could.
Bring it up. Awesome. All right, James, thanks so much for taking the time.
Nice. Thanks, Hayden.
Thanks, mate.